Hello, crafty friends! It's Alicia here with a project for Tailored Expressions. In today's video, I'll be showing you how to make a pair of cards perfect for the bibliophile in your life using items from the new Treat Your Shelf release. From the Treat Your Shelf card making kit, I will be using the layering stencil and coordinating dies. From the release, but outside of the kit, I am using the One for the Book stamp set. It does have coordinating dies you can purchase, but I won't be using them in today's video. I will also be using the largest die from the Bookmark Builder Die Set. Today's color palette was inspired by Color Cube card number 30, and I will be using the 4 colors on the right side of the card. For those, I chose blueberry, sweet corn, mulled wine, and cilantro. I also got out oyster for a neutral and coordinating blending brushes. For cardstock, I'm using Tailored Expressions Sugar Cube, and I also got out their vellum. For stamping, I'm using the exclusive TE Teal Misty, their Oreo ink, and StazOn in Jet Black. For some accenting and embellishing, I will be using Iridescent Glitter Happy Medium, Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White, and glitter drops in red and green. I also got out a brush for splattering and a spatula for helping with the happy medium. And I will be using a variety of adhesives to hold everything together. Let's get crafty! I'm going to get started by doing the stenciling, and for this I cut a piece of sugar cube cardstock to just a little under a 6-inch square. To hold that in place while I'm doing the stenciling, I added some adhesive to the back and took away a little of the tack with my fingers. Now I'm going to get stencil number 1 set up, and to hold it in place I'm using a couple pieces of the removable labeling tape. For the book stacks on this first layer, I will be using blueberry ink with the blue blending brush, and once I have some ink on my brush, I like to use circular in clockwise and counterclockwise motions to fill in those open areas. And I just keep blending until I like the shade of the color I'm getting and everything looks pretty even. These stencils have some accent pieces in addition to the book stacks, and you might have noticed that I did not use the blueberry on the top. That's because I'm going to be using the oyster ink to only stencil in the cat on this first layer. I did make sure to add color to each of the alignment squares on this first layer because when I bring in stencil number 2 to get everything aligned, I'm going to start with those squares. Now you might need to do a little adjusting just to make sure it looks good, but they are always a great place to start. When I do have them lined up, I'm going to use those same pieces of labeling tape, and for this layer I am using mulled wine ink, and I'm going to do the same thing over both stacks of those books. Once again, I'm not going to add this color to the top. Instead, I'll be using the oyster ink to color in the body of my lamp. I continued with each of the layers. For stencil number 3, I used cilantro, and for the final stencil, I used sweet corn, and on this color only, I did use it all over the stencil. I thought this would be a great color for the light coming out of the lamp. Before I take off that 4th stencil, I brought in the Iridescent Glitter Happy Medium, and I'm going to add just a little bit to the light on the lamp. I thought this would help make it look shiny. After I had that added, I did let this piece sit off to the side to dry for about 30 minutes. I just love the bit of sparkle it adds to the lamp. Now I'm going to use those coordinating dies to cut each piece out. Because you can't see through the book stacks, they do have some alignment squares to help you get those placed just right. And then for the lamp and the cat, I'm going to use their coordinating dies. For the lamp, there are a couple different options. One will cut out part of where the light is shining, but I am going to use the one that cuts out the entire thing with no holes or openings in the middle. The dies for the book stacks do have some additional detailing cuts that make the white part of the books look like they are pages. Such a neat touch. For the card fronts and the background of these die cut pieces, I wanted to make something that was pretty quick and easy. So on this first one, I'm using the blueberry and cilantro ink to ink blend a background. I'm going to bring in each ink from opposite ends, and I make sure that the ends are a little bit darker, and then I blend it out to almost white in the middle, but there is just a hint of color there. If you find that you have more of a gap than you like, you can always bring back in the previous brush you used. For my case, it would be the cilantro, and just kind of blend those two together. I did do the second one off camera using sweet corn and mulled wine, and that way I've used all four colors from my color palette today. To add a little extra interest, I will be doing some white splattering with that Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White. I put a little bit onto my tiny glass mat and a few drops of water. Then once I mix that up with the brush, and you can decide at this point if you need more water or not, I am just going to splatter those backgrounds. And you can tap as hard or as soft as you like, get close, get far away. I would just suggest protecting the rest of your work surface. Like you'll see me here, I have them inside of a box. Here's a look at the finished pieces after they had some time to dry. Let me know in the comments below what's your favorite way to add some faux texture to cards. To finish the focal points, I wanted to get my accessories added to the top of the stacks. On the smaller one, I added the lamp using some liquid glue, just a fine line at the base. And then for the taller stack, I added the cat. Now this one had a little bit more room to glue with the tail, but I did try to set it right there at the top, and I gave these some time to dry under a clear block. Next, I decided on which sentiments I wanted on the cards. For the first one with the cat, I chose the Hope Your Birthday is One for the books, and for the one with the lamp, I chose Just One More Chapter. I think we've all been there when it's late at night or when we have something to do and we want to read just one more chapter. On this card, I wanted to help the stack of books stand out just a little bit from the background. So off camera, I used a Bookmark Builder die and a scrap of TE vellum. I didn't have to cut the whole thing since the card front isn't that tall, but I think once it's placed behind there, not only is it on theme with that bookmark look, but it does help that stack stand out from that yellow and red background. Once I knew where all of the elements would go on this first card, I brought in the Teal Misty, and now I'm going to do a practice stamp on my sentiment. For this, I pull out the piece of clear acetate I always keep there in my Misty, and I'm going to place this over the top of the card base and do a little test stamping with the sentiment. This way I can make sure it's nice and straight across and where I would like it on the finished card. It did stamp pretty well that first time, so I went ahead and removed the clear acetate, inked up the stamp once again, and got it stamped onto the background. For the next sentiment, I will actually be stamping it onto vellum, so I'm using that Stays On Jet Black ink. For this, I got my sentiment placed kind of in the center because I want room on either side to wrap around the card, but where it is top to bottom doesn't matter because I will be trimming it down later. Now, Stays On ink, and maybe it's just my pad, it always seems to be a little bit drier, so I did ink this up and stamp it twice to get a nice solid black. Now that all of the pieces are ready, it's time to get the cards assembled. On the back of the focal point, I did add some foam tape for a little bit of dimension, and once I have that release paper pulled, I did add a layer of liquid glue on top. This way, when I go to add it to the card, I have a little bit of wiggle time to get it centered and placed just right before it's adhered down. The vellum sentiment strip I did trim down a little bit, and now I'm going to wrap it around the front and adhere the little tabs on the back. And you'll see here that there is some added dimension to that as that vellum wraps around up and over my kitty cat book stack. For the lamp card, I'm going to get my vellum bookmark put in place, and at the bottom, again, I'll be wrapping that around to the back and adhering it with some tape runner. Again, for the second card, once I pull the release paper from the foam tape, I add that layer of liquid glue. This then gets put onto that vellum bookmark and I give it a little bit of time to dry. Once it has, I use that piece as a hinge, flip it down, and I add liquid glue behind the lamp and that stack of books just to keep my vellum in place and keep the adhesive from showing. To finish the cards off and add a little sparkle, I brought in glitter drip drops in red and green and added 5 to the front of each card. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch today's video. If you enjoyed the process, a thumbs up is appreciated. And if you're not already a subscriber, we do hope you'll click on the button below so you're the first to know about our latest videos. To find out more about the products I used today, you can check out the links in the description box below or visit the Tailored Expressions online store at tailoredexpressions.com.